Good evening, everyone. Let's head on into Collectively Rewilding. All right, here we are, and there's been some new activity, probably just the posts that I put up about class. So we'll click that tab. And then our class is out of healthy soil creation, but I thought that that's actually what we would talk about tonight because this course needs to get completely redone. There's a lot of good information in here, but I'd like to redo a lot of it. And I'd like to kind of put it into an archived area and then turn this into our event area for our gardening planner. I think that that will be a more productive use of our time, better titling, and a bunch of different things so that like right now, when I've definitely done some things outside over the last week, but it's kind of a repetition of the same old things. It's not good or entertaining for any of us to talk about, right? And so there are a lot of articles that we're sharing in here that have a big variety of the different things that you can do at this time of year. And I think that that would be a more valuable use of our time because I am in such a beginning phase of getting this property going. I'm not talking about keeping certain things, covered because of the colder weather or keeping them even maybe in some sort of environment that will let the sun in during the day beyond just covering them from the frost, but maybe trying to get a little bit more warmth in there to them, or harvesting or gathering seeds. There's a lot of seeds actually that are happening in this rewilded area that has been quite successful in the end, right? Lots of weeds to bring back life to almost the entire patch of soil back there, which is a pretty decent sized part of the backyard. And the sunken garden did phenomenally, as did this back part of one of the berms. It doesn't have a swale on this side like it does down here, but it's the berm there. And that top half up over here, or I guess bottom half, because that's more towards the south, that also did really well. And so there's some scattered throughout, clover hit or miss, little flowers hit or miss throughout the rest of the yard, but it's almost all got life in it now. And so while it was really successful and there's going to be a ton of seeds out there from the areas that were more prolific, I'm just going to let them remain. And next year I'll have to really try to get rid of some of the sunflowers that come up because I did let the volunteer sunflowers kind of go a little bit nuts over here on this side yard. I will want to keep it down to 2 to 4 tops in this area over here, maybe not even any of those over there, and maybe just do deliberate sunflowers back along the north facing wall, so that where the sun comes in and strikes that, it's all going to get that sun, and then that corn and the sunflowers don't block the plants in front of them from getting that sunlight, right? And so it's all up in the air as to what we do for next year. We have to think about that. And that's where we're going to, again, get into our gardening planner, right? And so with Julia May helping us to organize and create really user-friendly material as well as user-friendly organization, she wants this to just stay one tab, I guess, right? You know what I'm talking about with multiple tabs, right? We're familiar with this layout, but new people coming in have to learn that layout, and the tabs can be a little daunting for people that aren't very computer savvy, right? And so these two spaces, news and updates and gardening planner in the Stay Tuned collection, are supposed to just be one type of featured tab. So this one is a course and news and updates is a feed, right? And that's all that's supposed to be there. And so what I'm thinking is that we'll take over healthy soil creation, and that is where we can store the classes that we do that go in conjunction with the gardening planner, as well as the articles that we might talk about or whatever, and then the events that we'll have for the gardening planner. And I thought we would just transition this whole thing over and start before the new year even gets here, because it's really kind of more interesting than trying to come up with something to talk about as far as healthy soil creation. It's happening. We've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. And I could talk about it a million times, but I'd rather talk about things that get everybody jazzed to be out in the garden, right? And there's so much that one could be doing at this time of year and throughout the whole year. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of the overall gardening planner, right? It has the entire season here, and we'll probably stretch it out so that there's 3 for January, and then 3 for February, 3 for March, so that we'll see how it goes. Julia wants to keep it at 3, and I see the value of that, but there are 4 weeks in a month. So, or 4 weeks, 4 weeks in each month. So I'm just not sure what will be the best way to do that. So we may break it down into 3 and then just cover certain portions. Like maybe I break it up into segments inside each week so that I know where to stop and start for that week, something like that. So that's all kind of part of getting this together. So what do you guys think of transitioning this class out of talking about just overall healthy soil creation and organic soil regeneration, all these different terms? What do you think about transitioning to the gardening planner, talking about the different kinds of activities that one can do at this time of year, whatever time of year it is?
It sounds good.
Yeah, Vanessa likes it. Any
Sounds
other
good.
thoughts?
Sounds good to me.
Right? It sounds more valuable, do you think?
I think it's more logical myself.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that's what we'll do. And so I don't have a ton to talk about. I've been digging into Gardenary so heavily. We can definitely go and jump into the different articles that have been going on and read those. You guys can talk about what you guys have going on in your different areas. How did your plants do when you got back home, Vanessa? Were they still alive?
Yeah, the yellow jalapeno, the green jalapeno turned red.
Uh-huh.
And I have, I think, 3 more little,
But they lived anyway then.
yeah, they were awfully dry. And
Yeah.
I watered them.
Yeah.
I think there was some more on there.
Well, we wish you luck in the ones that you have, right? And so I think that for all of us, really diving into this and getting into the different things that will help us in the seasons will really help us to have the best possible success next year, right? And there are a lot of different things that can be done at this time of year that will help you in the spring. I did just pull up an article like that. I haven't had a chance to share it with you guys yet. Let me pull that up and we'll go over it, because it's not just one topic, it was several topics, if I remember correctly. 12 fall garden chores that make spring so much easier. And then I actually like to take it for you guys, and I would go to Shasandra and Bergamo, the site, but we'll just read it here. All right, so 12 fall garden chores that make spring so much easier. Fall is the perfect time to prep your garden for the seasons ahead. A few hours of work now can save you days of effort when spring arrives, leaving you with healthier plants, richer soil, and tidier garden beds. By tackling these simple chores before winter sets in, you'll be setting the stage for an easier and more beautiful growing season. Here are 12 essential fall garden tasks that make spring gardening feel effortless. And so we'll check that out. Cleanup annual. That just depends on what you want to do, right? Are you wanting to help the insects, the pollinators, and the soil generators and manipulators, right? Because the ants and things, right, in my front yard, we bought a manual aerator, And, you know, it did some good, but not nearly as much as if you paid somebody and they come and get these big chunks out of your yard, right? So I happen to notice there are a ton of these wasps, these hybrid wasps that we've talked to you guys about, and they've decided to burrow into the front yard that needs to get aerated, and they're going to maintain those holes throughout the whole winter into the spring when they come back out and start doing their thing again, right? And that's going to create a ton of aeration. So it all depends on what you want to do. Also, more and more people are talking about the kind of beauty that can be left from different plants that have gone dormant or died for the season, right? Some of them look very neat and they're actually positive aesthetic if one wants to look at it like that. So let's see what they said. Pull out. Oh, and don't pull them out. Cut them off. Those roots will break down and biodegrade in your soil, and they will also help to aerate it, right? That whole thing. It's a whole process. You don't want to pull the roots unless it's something that you're trying to get rid of, like bindweed. I will be pulling the roots out, right? I told you guys that I debated whether to leave it in the ground or not, but I did, and it really helps the soil to sustain the areas that did put out the flowers that I sowed, right? That I put out for the different seed packages that we talked about. And now they've done their purpose and the soil is in better condition. It's alive. I'm going to just rip them out, the bindweed. Otherwise, it's more like cutting off the plants or trampling them down or something like that, not pulling up the roots. And again, if you trample them all down or you cut them all out or whatever it is that you choose to do, there are a ton of different types of necessary insects that will not be able to have a home there, right? And so we each have to decide what it is that we want to do. But if you want it to have the most health for your garden, don't pull them out. Cut them off or trample them down, something along those lines. Oops, and I don't like to go up there for that reason. Okay, this is cut back perennials. There are definitely some perennials that you'll want to cut back. It's better for the plant. Again, you can leave them if you want to help the insect life or if you think they have any aesthetic beauty, anything like that. It's something that we all have to decide for our own properties, right? And when you do cut them back, whatever type of foliage, whatever type of plant it is, make sure to put those into the compost heap if it's not something that has seeds that you don't want in your compost heap, right? Make sure to put all of that back in. Or another alternative is that you can dig down into your garden beds, shred it up a little bit, and then bury it and then cover it right back up. And that will biodegrade slowly over the winter. It will start that biodegrading process, releasing some of the nutrients and just be continued food. So M.I. Gardner did a good post about it that we shared in Collectively Rewilding. And I would have wanted to break up the material a little bit more than he did. However, he's got so much that he's putting in and dealing with, maybe he just simply doesn't have the time. And so we all have to look at how much time we have for each different activity as well, right? All right, and so next, rake and save the leaves, or just leave them where they are, which is what I absolutely recommend. Again, it will help all of the different types of necessary insects that are out there, and it will break down a lot over the winter. Then in the spring, you can come through after the bugs have gone out and started doing their thing, and everything's starting to turn and things are starting to come up, growing out of the ground. Anything that's left, you can just run over with a lawnmower, right? And mulch that right in, break up any clumps so that they don't kill that new spring grass as it's coming up, but it's going to actually be wonderful for your soil. They're saying at least to save them and use them in like your compost bin, but I recommend leaving them where they are. Now here we probably will gather them once we start actually having the leaves and putting them into the compost heap, because our winds are so bad that we'll lose all of that leaf material. It's never going to stay on our yard. So rather than lose that from this property's, cycle of returning life to itself, returning nutrients to itself, we'll put it back into the compost heap so that it does get back out as soil for the whole area, right? Wherever we manage to spread it out to next year. continuing on, add a layer of compost. Absolutely. If you've already got compost to the point, right? We just have been here for a year. And of course, we started composting right away, but the soil has not complete, or the process is definitely not completed back there, even though my husband's turned it quite a bit and we've kept it moist for good portions of the time. Not perfect. It's a desert. It does get really hard to keep things moist. So I'm sure it dried out some, but it's been very active, right? And still, there's a lot there that needs to decompose. Now, when the spring comes, before the grass has really started coming up, maybe even when there's still just a little bit of snow left on the ground, we'll spread that out. And we do want to spread it out over the front yard just because it was so depleted from these previous owners, right? Overwatering the soil. It's just so sad. It's just depressing to look at the front yard compared to what we came into, this falsely presented beautiful lush green yard with these trees and all of this. We knew that the aspens and silver birch were a problem, but everything else looked glorious. And then we moved in and we're like, oh my God, they're watering 3 times a day. It just ruined the soil. So we have to start over. It's not dead soil, but it's seriously depleted soil. And so we want to take a large portion, if not all of the compost that we have generated by the spring and put it out over the front yard, and then do just some really light, the actual store-bought manicured pine bark that's the smallest pieces. They're really little. They're like smaller than a dime, most of them, and scatter that out just really lightly over that soil so that it has a little bit of cover to keep it moist and to prevent a ton of weeds from forming that aren't already there. The ones that are there, they're not nasty weeds, so it's not really a very big deal. And we don't care about that as much, right? But we don't not nasty, or we don't want to deliberately introduce more. We're actually going to put down a 3 clover blend and a 4 grass blend and mix that through the whole yard as well with that compost and with that light mulching. And we should have a decent yard again next year, especially with all of the natural fertilizers that we're adding. And I have decided that I am going to go ahead and not wait for the urea that I already have working, because it's not for gardening. We will eventually put raised beds onto that area, but we're a ways away from that, well over the 6-month period that would be needed, right? So we're going to go ahead and put the urea that has already been generated out onto the garden area before the snow comes, so that it gets in there and it just works itself into the soil. And then by the springtime, it will already have gotten in there and gotten even more broken down and usable by the soil. And all of this, we should just have a phenomenal yard next year, right? So these are all wonderful things to do. Continuing on, plant spring bulbs. Absolutely. I would love to have some time and the area is already ready to do some bulb planting, but we're just not quite to that point. This next fall, I should be well into an area where we can talk about it and I can walk you guys through it, visually showing you, answering your questions as we're going along, all of that great stuff, right? So if you have an area though that's ready and you would like to put in anything from garlic and different types of onion plants, right, to things like tulips and daffodils and jonquils and all of those beautiful different bulb plants can go into the ground right now for the spring. All right, if you plant them in the spring, they will be late bloomers or not bloom at all next year. All right, and divide overcrowded plants. So our ditch lilies or day lilies, right? They're really technically ditch lilies, but they're one of many that are called day lilies that are out in our front runner right by our sidewalk. They could probably handle being divided. And so then you go, okay, but is this the right kind of plant to actually divide? So let's go to Google, always my preferred search area there, and say just that, right? There we go. Should you divide ditch lilies in the fall? Yes, right? Most bulb plants will be, but I always want to check, and you should always check, because there's always the possibility that something can be an exception to a very broad, overarching kind of a rule, right? And so if I find time, it would be wonderful to go ahead and go out there. They're beautiful while they're flowering. And if we can get that area healthier, I think they'll flower for quite a bit longer. And this is one of the ways to get an area healthier, right? You could go in there and divide them, pull some out, give them away to friends, plant them in another area, whatever works better for you. And then you can actually add in some compost and things, and then put a little bit of mulch on top of that, all at the same time, right? So, or some fresh bulbs. You could maybe do a little bit more than just divide. Maybe you take a few extra clumps out of each area, and then you throw a bulb or two in, right? Lots of fun things that you can do at this time of year. All right, headed back to our article here. Protect tender plants, right? And that's kind of, we talked a little bit about that, whether you're just covering them from the frost, or you actually are going to try to get some warmth into them, and you put something like, I think it's pronounced a cloche. Let's just show everybody. We've talked about it before, but cloches, and they have all of these plastic variations for it now. If you're going to use plastic, if you're in a windy area like I am, make sure that somehow you secure it down to the ground, put weight on top of it if that's an option, if it's strong enough for some weight on top of it, do something to make sure that it doesn't blow away. In the past, they were actually glass. And so they were obviously a little bit more likely to stay where you put them when they were glass. I also, anytime that it's possible, myself prefer glass over plastic, because we have all of these, oh, plastic's bad about this, plastic's bad about this, microplastics this, and you know, wouldn't it be better to just use glass whenever possible, right? So for example, for our Walipini, we probably won't be able to do something along the lines of glass. It would be wonderful to be able to have the time to constantly change out the roof and utilize something like reclaimed windows, where they're putting that pressure down on them and you'd have to keep constant watch on them and then be ready to pull one out and put a new one in, kind of a thing. That would be wonderful. It's not very realistic, and it could actually become dangerous, right? So we'll probably have either a clear fiberglass or plexiglass, something more along those lines on the top, but then all around the walls where I can utilize those reclaimed windows, everything will be glass, right? And so wherever possible, I do prefer to utilize something like glass over plastic. I just don't think it's a good idea for really anything, unless it's some sort of absolute necessity that we just don't know how to make it in any other thing other than plastic. I would love to see us as a whole globe starting to look for alternatives and try to find solutions that are better for all of life, really, as well as utilizing things like mushroom plastics. And I think they have some other types of plant plastics now as well, right? There's a lot of different options. So hopefully moving forward, we start doing that. And glass is really a very amazing substance. It's simply heated sand, right? That's what glass is. And I'm sure they've gotten a lot more technical now about their recipes, but where it originated, beyond getting like the colored glass, and that's what it is, heated sand. And it is infinitely recyclable. That is not something you can say for any other substance that we recycle that I'm aware of. It can just keep getting recycled and it stays at that same level of strength. That is so amazing. It also has a lot less toxic byproduct to make and recycle glass. As a side note to that, we are depleting the world's sand at an exorbitant rate. So we should all be recycling glass wherever we can recycle glass, as well as reusing glass wherever possible. And then in gardening, we can use a different type of glass. However, a different type of sand. However, having said all of that, glass is now being ground up. And Anita, my mom, is here with us tonight. She found this and shared it with me. And I actually shared it with the town of Tooele because I think it is just such an amazing idea. This company is taking in glass. They grind it up to a certain consistency and they're putting it in areas where the sand has been depleted and it is not causing any ecological damage. They have this studied by different extension offices, right? We talk all the time about how valuable these extension offices are. Well, they do a lot of research as well. And they're finding that this does not have consequences. They can literally go back and take this glass that should have never been thrown away, but would have been thrown away, break it down, and basically, without even trying to return it to its original molecular structure as sand, simply use it as glass, and it works in the similar capacity. They're not finding it to cause problems for plants. They're not finding it to cause problems for the animals, for the watershed, for anything. So glass is really a very, very amazing human-made creation. It's one of our most valuable creations, in my personal opinion. I think glass is so underrated. We take it so for granted, right? So just something to think about, right? Okay, going back to our article. Clean and store garden tools. Absolutely, right? To do those kinds of things that you don't necessarily have time when you're in the midst of all the gardening, all the digging, all the watering, all of the weeding, whatever it is that each of us are doing, it gets a little sloppy with our tools. So as it's starting to cool off and you have less pressing duties outside, maybe you don't have to water, the rains came, or it's just cool enough that you can push the watering off for a day. Get in there and do some maintenance on your tools. Empty and store hoses. I was thinking about that today. I was sitting there looking at my hoses thinking, gosh, I've already got a hold of the sprinkler company. They're going to come and blow the sprinklers out. I need to get these hoses out of their way and off the ground. We've had so much water and it's already dipped so much cooler, right? It's down to 61 degrees here in Tooele, 61 degrees. They don't need a tremendous amount of water. I don't know that I will water again because we have just been inundated with water, and I do believe we're supposed to get some more tomorrow, which is wonderful. I'm just so excited as the water pours down on my structures. It doesn't have all the Hugo Culture I'd like for it to have yet, but those structures, just as they are, will store additional water into the property. And so, oh, it's already ready to go for the spring, and that just is so exciting, right? All right, continuing on. Mulch around trees and shrubs. If you're going to do that, you want to make sure it's very thin. You don't want to have a whole lot. Not much pressing up against that bark at all, if anything. Give a little bit of room around the actual bark of the tree. You don't want to cause any bark rot or any of those kinds of problems for your trees. Collect seeds for the next year, right? My soil is going to be collecting the seeds. One thing I am going to do to manipulate it just a little bit is to take the amaranth that I brought from the last property, right? It did so beautifully at the last property that we were renting. I gathered up a whole bunch of the seed and brought it here, and I put it into my main swale. And it didn't take through the whole thing, but as the season progressed, it did take up on the further western side, which is really interesting because that's the side that baked the worst during the heat of the summer, but that's the side that took up and let this amaranth seed come up. And we have a ton of that gorgeous amaranth. And in that swale, I would like to have asparagus, amaranth, and strawberries. And so I'm going to take the seed that did generate up here on the west side and scatter it throughout that whole swale so that then I can go in and, excuse me, plant, I don't even know why I'm coughing. My throat just dried out, I guess. Excuse me. I can't remember, they're like stands or spears, maybe spears for the asparagus. They're a different kind of a plant to put into your garden. And I'm really excited to test it out this spring. I've never seen it done. I don't really fully know the process, so I'm sure I'll be doing a ton of research and then talking to you guys all about it. And that'll go in with the amaranth and then strawberries as well. I'll probably put in some nursery strawberries as well as get some seeds and let those start the process. It does take a while to get your strawberries in from seed. So definitely you want to do it sooner rather than in a later period. I may even buy a few packages and place the seeds out over the fall so that it gets in there, it's already in the ground, and it may have some hope of perhaps having enough growth to put off strawberries in the fall next year. I don't know that it would be able to this spring, but that would be the best chance that you would have if you want to do something like strawberries from seed. Plant them this fall, let them overwinter, and see if you don't get them at least hopefully by the next fall. But strawberries are a little bit harder to grow from seed. You definitely can. It just takes longer than what you expect when you go to the nursery and you see them and they're just there and you think, oh, okay, I can just plant these in the ground. It's not quite that simple. So definitely, it's not too much. Go get a couple packages of strawberry plants. They're supposed to do really, really well in most locations. They can even become a ground cover. I had no idea that they could be that prolific. So I'm really excited to see. I have definitely had a lot of success with strawberries over the years, and Utah, I've had more success than before even with strawberries. So they're not a tremendously difficult plant to grow. They're just easier to start with the nurseries. So if you want to do it from seeds, like I want to do as well, you want to probably go ahead and just grab some and throw them into your ground area when it's really starting to get down to the colder temperatures. Now, of course, for all of you who are in that southern region, all bets are changed, if not off, right? They're completely different, and you guys can really kind of try to start something anytime you want and have very different results than what we will in the colder climates up here. And even down in the western deserts and things like that, it can get pretty cold, right? And let's see if this is a real one. Yes, prep your compost pile. So turn it, right? Because if you're in an area like mine where it's going to get a bunch of snow, you're probably not going to go out there and turn it after the snow comes. So definitely go out there, get another turn or two into your compost pile. The longest your weather permits, go through another couple of rounds. And since my husband had his debacle on the stairs, it'll have to be the girls or I that go out and do that. Normally he maintains that for us, but that's not going to be his job until next spring, right? And so these are all excellent recommendations, and I'll go ahead and share that article for you guys just so that you can go back and be like, oh, what was that other chore? I got all these that I wanted to do, but there was one more I really wanted to do. So I'll throw that up. Another thing that I've been doing with articles of that nature is I'm throwing them up now, but so many of us struggled and didn't have the kind of success that we would have liked, or else like where we are here, yeah, we had success, but it doesn't mean that we were able to do a normal gardening situation, right? Whatever your case may be, I want these articles to come out already planned so that we can go through them and follow them as the next year progresses, and they just follow along with what we're doing in the garden planner, right? Because we're going to be testing it out as us here in Collectively Rewilding before we release the hybrid garden planner and journal out there into the wild world. We'll test all of that out and see if it lines up with the articles that all of these different people are sharing for each part of the year, and add anything in that we're missing, move things around, take things out if we don't feel that we really need them anymore. Whatever the case may be, we're that initial test group. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. You guys are going to have a lot of ability to share your thoughts as we test all of this, and tell us what it was. Did it work for you? Was it too much to try to get done in a week, right? Like all of these different things are what we'll work on in this class. Does that sound fun to all of you? Uh-oh, no thoughts?
Sounds fun to me. I'm sorry, I'm eating nerds. I'm eating candy.
You're good. You're good.
She's already started hers, so that's why she's saying all this for her.
Oh yeah, and she can keep going with a lot of it, depending. She put some covers on it. I don't know, it was getting pretty cold there for her today. It was in the low 70s, right? So where are you at in Louisiana, Ethel?
It is.
No, not now. In your daytime. What was it during
I'm telling you, it was up to 87 today.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It was 89 here.
That's not.
They haters, you know. We got all the sunshine and they got all the cold and they can keep it. I know.
I know that's true. Tennessee it's hot here.
I think that was because I was trying to laugh because I couldn't handle it being that hot still. Oh my gosh, in the middle of October? Whew, that's too long.
We have
Oh,
worn shorts at Christmas time.
Right.
wow.
Our,
That's
our
a
weather
long
is
time.
behind. Like in March is when we get our cold weather.
We're heading out of the cold weather in March, right? So,
Well,
oh, all right, guys.
you
Whew.
said 57 in his degrees.
57 for you right now.
It's raining, he says.
Oh, that's what Benny's got. Yeah. Yeah, Benny is in a very cold area for the winter, right? I don't know Massachusetts well, but it gets cold for sure. All right, guys, let's check out what we have going on while I can still talk. Whew, that really got me. No, 87 and 91. That's too hot for the middle of October. Whew. All right, everybody. So tomorrow is Let's Quit Together. For those of you who are quitting vaping, quitting soda, quitting cigarettes like my husband and I are. Of course, I quit Dr. Pepper, right? I haven't quit the orange soda, but I went from about the equivalent of 5 cans of Dr. Pepper down to just 2 cans of orange soda. So a lot less and a lot better for you. Not that they're good for you, but a lot less damaging for you than the darker sodas. So whatever it is that you're trying to do less of, come join us. Let's quit together tomorrow at 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 2 o'clock p.m. Mountain, 3 o'clock p.m. Central, and 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern. All right, guys, please feel free to unmute and say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Buenos
Bye, guys.
noches, everybody. I'll see you later.
See you tomorrow, hopefully, and have a wonderful night.
Good nighty, good nighty.
Bye, guys.
Good night.